never thought my private world would collide with my professional life. By day, I was simply Alex, a dependable office assistant who kept my head down and focused on spreadsheets, schedules, and the endless demands of my boss, Ms. Clara Winters. Our company was a high-profile marketing firm in the heart of the city, a place where image mattered almost as much as results. Everyone dressed to impress, and Clara embodied perfection. Her sharp suits, sleek heels, and effortless confidence made her the center of every room she entered. I admired her from a distance, never daring to imagine she would notice me beyond my work. But when I returned home each night, the suit and tie came off and a different version of me emerged. In the privacy of my small apartment, I explored a side of myself that I had kept hidden for years. I loved the soft textures of blouses, the way a skirt swayed with the slightest movement, the comforting scent of makeup as I carefully applied it to my face. I wasn't trying to be someone else. I was discovering a part of me that felt alive and honest. It wasn't about pretending. It was about revealing what had always been there. Still, it was my secret. I guarded it fiercely, knowing the risk of judgment in a world that thrived on appearances. I never wore anything outside, never took pictures that could escape into the wrong hands. Or so I thought. It started on an ordinary Thursday evening when Clara called me into her office just as I was packing up to leave. Her tone was as crisp as her charcoal gray blazer. "Alex, a word before you go," she said, eyes sharp but unreadable. My stomach tightened. Had I made a mistake in the latest proposal? Missed a deadline? Inside her office, the blinds were half drawn, the glow of the city lights spilling across her desk. Clara leaned back in her chair, studying me with an intensity that made my pulse race. Then she slid a glossy envelope across the desk. "I think this belongs to you," she said calmly. I hesitated, fingers trembling as I opened it. My heart dropped. Inside were photographs. Me, fully dressed in one of my private outfits. A soft pink blouse, a flowing skirt, my makeup carefully done. The photos were clear, intimate, and unmistakable. My voice cracked. I couldn't find words. I felt exposed, fragile, as if the walls around my double life were collapsing in real time. Clara didn't look angry. Instead, her expression softened, though her eyes remained keen. "You don't have to explain right now," she said, her voice low and steady. "But I want you to know that I'm not here to shame you." The room spun. My carefully constructed barrier between work and personal life had been shattered, yet she spoke with a strange kindness. I couldn't decide whether to be terrified or relieved. How did you get these?" I finally managed to whisper. "They were mistakenly attached to a file you sent me last night," she replied. "You must have dragged the wrong folder while preparing the presentation. I didn't mean to pry, Alex. But once I opened them, I realized there was something important here. Something about you that you've been hiding." My knees felt weak. I wanted to melt into the floor. I expected ridicule or at least a cold dismissal. Instead, Clara leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. "I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're exploring. But I do think you're hiding a part of yourself that deserves to be seen. And I have an idea." Her choice of words sent a shiver through me. An idea. What did that mean? I stood frozen, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. "Come in early tomorrow," she continued. "Before anyone else. I want to show you something. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. Just trust me." I left her office in a daze. My secret wasn't just discovered. It was now in her hands. That night, I barely slept, replaying her words over and over. Why wasn't she angry? Why wasn't she threatening to tell HR? And what could she possibly want to show me? Morning came too quickly. I arrived at the office before dawn, the city streets still wet from a night of rain. Clara's office door was ajar, a soft light spilling out. She stood by her desk in a cream silk blouse and pencil skirt, looking every bit the poised professional. But there was something different in her eyes, a spark of excitement, maybe even mischief. "Right on time," she said with a faint smile. "Follow me." She led me down a hallway I'd never noticed before, to a door marked Private. Inside was a room unlike anything I expected. Clothing racks lined the walls, filled with elegant dresses, tailored suits, and accessories that shimmered under soft lighting. A full-length mirror stood in the corner, surrounded by a vanity stocked with makeup and brushes. Felt like stepping into a dream or perhaps a challenge. "This," Clara said, gesturing to the room, "is where we work on our client presentations for high-profile campaigns. We use it for wardrobe testing, photo shoots, and styling. But today it's for you." Froze. "For me?" "Yes," she said, stepping closer. "You've been hiding who you are, Alex. I think it's time you see what happens when you stop hiding." My breath caught. The racks of clothes seemed to shimmer with possibility and danger all at once. Clara's eyes held mine with a calm determination, as though she already knew what I would choose. "Today," she continued, her voice steady, "you're going to be my assistant, but not as Alex, as the person you've been exploring in secret. Let's see her step into the light." My heart pounded so hard I could barely think. I wanted to run, but a deeper part of me, one that had longed for this moment, kept me rooted to the spot. And that was how my transformation began. I stood frozen as Clara moved gracefully toward the clothing racks, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She scanned the options like a stylist preparing a model for a high-end photo shoot. My heart raced, every beat echoing in the quiet room. I couldn't believe what was happening. Yesterday, I was terrified my career would crumble because my secret was exposed. Now my boss was inviting me, encouraging me, to embrace it in the most unexpected way. Clara turned back to me, holding a soft lavender blouse and a sleek knee-length skirt, the kind of outfit I'd only dared to wear in the privacy of my apartment. "This," she said gently, "feels like a good place to start. It's elegant but not too bold. Would you like to try it?" Her words were kind, but they carried a subtle firmness, as if she already knew my answer. My throat felt dry as I nodded. "Why, yes," I whispered, my voice trembling. Clara smiled warmly and guided me toward a small dressing area at the back of the room. A heavy velvet curtain separated it from the rest of the space. As I stepped inside, I felt a swirl of emotions: fear, excitement, and an odd sense of relief. My fingers brushed against the delicate fabric of the blouse. It was softer than anything I'd worn in years, light as a whisper. Slowly I began to change. My hands trembled as I removed my usual office attire, folding it carefully as though marking the end of an era. The lavender blouse slid across my shoulders like a cool breeze, the skirt fitting snugly around my waist. When I finally faced the mirror, my breath caught. I looked different. Not unrecognizable but more complete. My reflection wasn't a stranger. It was me. Just a version of me that had been waiting for permission to exist. For a long moment, I simply stared, absorbing the quiet truth that this wasn't a disguise. This was a part of me I had always known but never allowed to breathe. "May I come in?" Clara's voice floated through the curtain. I hesitated, then softly replied, "Yes." The curtain parted, and she stepped inside, her eyes lighting up as she took in the sight of me. "Beautiful," she said, her tone filled with a genuine admiration that sent a warmth through my chest. "How do you feel?" I swallowed hard. "Scared. But right. Like I'm finally seeing myself." Clara nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. You don't need to hide this, Alex. You're allowed to explore every part of who you are." Before I could respond, she reached for a small makeup kit on the vanity. "May I?" she asked softly, holding up a brush. The question stunned me. My makeup attempts at home had always been solitary, clumsy experiments. Having someone else, even more so my boss, offer to help felt strangely intimate but also comforting. Gave a shaky nod. She began with gentle precision, her hands steady and confident as she applied a light foundation and soft blush. "You have such naturally kind eyes," she said, smiling slightly. "A little mascara will bring them out beautifully." Her calm voice and professional ease settled my nerves. I felt the brush glide across my skin, each stroke like a small act of affirmation. By the time she finished with a subtle lip tint, the reflection in the mirror stole my breath once again. The person staring back wasn't a fantasy or a hidden version. It was simply me, fully alive. Clara placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're radiant," she said, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. "Now let's take this one step further." "One step further," I echoed, my pulse quickening. "I have a presentation with an important client today," Clara explained. "Normally you'd prepare the files and stay behind the scenes. But today I want you by my side. As my assistant. Just like this." The words hit me like a shockwave. "Go out there. In front of people. Dressed like this." Panic flared in my chest. I can't," I stammered. "Everyone will notice. They'll know. They'll notice your confidence," she countered firmly. "That's all. And if anyone asks, you're simply my new assistant. They don't need to know anything more." Her certainty was infectious. Part of me still wanted to run, to retreat back into the safe shadow of my double life. But another part, the part that had quietly yearned for authenticity, was drawn to the challenge. Clara's presence felt like an anchor, steadying me against the rising tide of fear. "You don't have to be perfect," she said softly. "You just have to be." I inhaled sharply, then nodded. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Clara's smile widened. "Good. Let's start with something simple. Walk with me." We left the private room and entered the hallway. Each step echoed in the quiet office, my heels clicking softly against the floor. My heart pounded as though the entire building could hear it. Every reflective surface became a new test. Glass doors, polished floors, each one offering a glimpse of the person I was slowly becoming. As we approached the conference room, I felt the familiar weight of fear pressing down again. What if someone arrived early? What if a colleague recognized me? But Clara's calm, confident stride set the pace. She didn't slow down or glance back. She simply walked, as though there was nothing unusual about the situation. Her quiet certainty gave me the strength to keep moving. Inside the conference room, Clara handed me a stack of neatly prepared files. "You'll be my right hand today," she said with a subtle smile. "Just focus on the work. Let the rest take care of itself." The room smelled faintly of fresh coffee and polished wood, the city skyline visible through the wide windows. I placed the files on the table, my movements careful but deliberate. For the first time I felt the odd thrill of existing in the open, not hidden, not disguised, but standing fully in the moment. Clara adjusted a strand of my hair and whispered, "You're doing beautifully." Something inside me shifted then, a quiet click of understanding. This wasn't just about clothes or makeup. It was about trust, trusting her, trusting myself, and trusting that maybe, just maybe, the world was bigger and kinder than I had allowed myself to believe. But as the clock ticked closer to the client's arrival, a sharp realization struck me like a lightning bolt. If I could step into this role today, even for a single meeting, what would stop me from stepping further tomorrow? The thought both thrilled and terrified me. Clara noticed the flicker of uncertainty in my eyes. "Breathe," she said softly. "One step at a time. Today you're simply my pretty assistant. Tomorrow we'll see." And with that, the door handle turned, signaling the arrival of the first client. The door swung open with a soft click, and the first client stepped into the conference room. My heart jumped into my throat as two sharply dressed executives entered, their voices cheerful but businesslike. I felt every inch of fabric on my body, every faint brush of makeup on my skin, as though my own senses were amplifying each detail. My instinct screamed to hide, to retreat into a corner, but Clara greeted them with effortless charm, her voice smooth and commanding. "Good morning," she said, shaking hands with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere. Then with the same grace she turned toward me. "And this is my new assistant. She'll be helping us with today's presentation." The single word landed like a spark in my chest. Clara had said it so casually, without hesitation, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The clients smiled politely, offering a quick hello before focusing on the meeting. They didn't question, didn't pause. The world didn't collapse. The sky didn't fall. They simply accepted me. I moved through the meeting like I was balancing on a tightrope, each step careful and deliberate. I handed out documents, adjusted the projector, and took notes while Clara led the discussion. Every so often, I caught a glimpse of myself in the glossy surface of the conference table, a flash of lavender, a curve of a soft smile. With each passing moment, my fear began to loosen its grip, replaced by an unfamiliar but intoxicating sense of freedom. Clara never missed a beat. She referred to me as her assistant with a calm authority that left no room for doubt or question. When she looked my way, her eyes held a quiet encouragement, as if silently saying, "See, you belong here." As the meeting stretched on, I began to forget the panic that had consumed me earlier. Instead, I focused on the rhythm of the presentation, the way Clara's voice carried confidence and warmth. I even caught myself speaking up when one client asked for clarification on a key figure. My reply was steady, professional. For the first time, I wasn't just existing in this new identity. I was thriving in it. When the meeting ended, the clients offered their thanks and departed with firm handshakes and satisfied smiles. As the door closed behind them, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My knees felt weak, but not from fear, from exhilaration. "You were perfect," Clara said, turning to me with a proud smile. "Graceful, professional, and poised. How do you feel?" I hesitated, searching for the right words. "It felt incredible," I admitted. "I thought I'd be terrified the whole time, but it almost felt natural." "That's because it is natural," she replied softly. "You were simply being yourself." Her words sank deep into me, settling like a truth I had always known but never dared to believe. Before I could respond, Clara reached for a sleek folder on the table and handed it to me. "Take a look at this," she said. Inside was a mock campaign proposal, bright images, bold taglines, and a theme centered on transformation. "This is for one of our upcoming clients. They're launching a campaign about personal reinvention, and I've been searching for the right creative direction. Seeing you today, I think you're exactly the inspiration we need." My eyes widened. "Me? But..." "Yes, you," she said with quiet certainty. "You understand transformation in a way that can't be faked. And I want you to help me design this campaign, not as Alex, but as the person you've been showing me today." The offer was almost too much to process. Just hours ago, I had been terrified of losing my job. Now Clara was not only supporting me but inviting me to channel my journey into something powerful and creative. I swallowed hard, emotions swirling. I don't even know where to start." "You don't have to," she said, her tone reassuring. "We'll figure it out together. But I want you to promise me something first." I looked up, meeting her steady gaze. "What?" "Promise me you won't hide from yourself anymore. No more locking this away when you leave work. I'm not saying you need to tell the whole world tomorrow. But at least promise that you'll give yourself the chance to explore who you really are." Her words cut through me like a beam of light. I thought of the years spent hiding behind locked doors, the quiet nights staring into a mirror and wondering if the reflection was just a dream. Maybe this was the first time someone had not only seen me, but invited me to exist. "I promise," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Clara's smile softened. "Good. Because this is only the beginning." As we left the conference room, she led me back toward the private styling area. The hallway felt different now, brighter somehow, as though the walls themselves recognized the shift inside me. Back in the dressing room, Clara handed me a small, elegant box. "This is for you," she said. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, simple yet beautiful, with a small charm shaped like a star. "It's a reminder," she explained. "Every time you wear it, I want you to remember that you don't need permission to shine." I traced the tiny star with my fingertip, my chest tightening with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Why are you doing this for me?" finally asked. Clara paused, her eyes thoughtful. "Because I see someone brave enough to face who they are, even when they're scared. That kind of courage is rare. And because, she hesitated, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Because everyone deserves someone in their corner. Her words lingered in the air like a quiet promise. As I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, a wave of realization washed over me. This wasn't just about one morning of dressing differently. It wasn't about a single meeting or even a single day. This was the start of something bigger, a journey I had been avoiding for too long. Clara stepped closer, her voice low and steady. Tomorrow, I want you to come dressed as yourself again. And the next day. And the next. We'll take it one step at a time. No pressure, no expectations. Just discovery. The thought both thrilled and terrified me, but for the first time, fear no longer felt like a barrier. Felt like a doorway. Okay, I said softly. I'll try. Clara's eyes sparkled. That's all I ask. As I gathered my things and prepared to leave for the day, I caught one last glimpse of myself in the mirror. The lavender blouse, the subtle makeup, the silver bracelet gleaming softly against my wrist. For the first time, I didn't see two separate lives colliding. I saw one person, whole and undeniable, finally stepping into the light. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The world outside the office wouldn't always be as kind as Clara. There would be questions, doubts, maybe even judgment. Yet as I walked out of the building, the city lights reflecting in the evening glass, I felt something stronger than fear. Felt ready. That evening, the city felt strangely different as I stepped onto the street. The air carried the faint scent of rain and warm concrete, but it wasn't the weather that made everything feel charged. It was me. I walked with the bracelet cool against my wrist, the faintest trace of makeup still on my skin, and a lavender blouse folded carefully inside my bag. It was as though the world around me had shifted, or maybe it was my own eyes that were finally seeing clearly. For the first time, I wasn't rushing home to bury a part of myself. I was walking through the city carrying the truth, even if no one else knew it yet. Still, fear hovered like a shadow. Every glance from a stranger felt sharper, every reflection in a window like a silent test. My mind whispered 1,000 worries. What if someone from work sees me leaving like this? What if Clara changes her mind tomorrow? What if I wake up and realize this was all a mistake? But beneath the anxiety, a quiet thrill pushed back, a whisper of courage that refused to be silenced. That night, I sat in front of my bedroom mirror, the soft glow of a single lamp illuminating my face. I unpacked the blouse and skirt, laying them gently across the bed. My heart raced as I picked up the bracelet, its silver star catching the light. I could still hear Clara's words. You don't need permission to shine. I turned the charm between my fingers, thinking of the way she looked at me, not with pity or curiosity, but with respect. For years I had told myself that hiding was safer, that privacy meant protection. But now, hiding felt like a cage I had built with my own hands. And once you've stepped outside a cage, it's impossible to pretend the bars don't exist. The next morning, I stood in front of my wardrobe, my usual work clothes suddenly dull and lifeless. My hands hovered over a charcoal suit, then moved toward a soft blouse I had once worn only in secret. My heart pounded as I chose the blouse, pairing it with simple slacks and a delicate chain necklace. Nothing dramatic, just a small step toward the person I had begun to meet yesterday. Walking into the office felt like walking onto a stage, though no one knew there was a performance at all. My colleagues greeted me with their usual smiles and small talk. No one stared. No one questioned. It was almost anticlimactic, and yet it was everything. The world hadn't crumbled. The earth hadn't shifted. I was just me. And no one seemed to notice the quiet revolution happening in plain sight. Clara noticed, of course, when she stepped out of her office and caught sight of me. Her eyes lit up with a subtle, approving glimmer. "Good morning," she said, her tone carrying a warmth that only I could detect. "You look confident today." Her words landed like a spark of validation. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't alone. Over the next week, small changes began to ripple through my days. Clara continued to involve me in the transformation campaign, giving me creative input and trusting my instincts. We brainstormed slogans about authenticity, about shedding masks and embracing hidden truths. Each meeting felt like a mirror of my own journey, the campaign's themes aligning perfectly with the quiet changes happening inside me. But it wasn't all easy. One afternoon, during a team meeting, a colleague casually remarked on my new style, raising an eyebrow with a hint of curiosity. My stomach tightened, panic flashing through me. I forced a small smile and replied, "Just trying something different." They nodded, uninterested, moving on to the next topic. I exhaled, realizing that the storm I feared was often nothing more than a passing cloud. Outside of work, though, the challenges were sharper. A trip to the grocery store in a soft sweater and light makeup left me hyper-aware of every passing glance. A stranger's lingering look felt like an accusation. My heart raced as I paid for my items, hands trembling slightly. But then I remembered Clara's calm certainty in the conference room. Her voice steady and unshaken. "You just have to be." One evening, after a long day of planning presentations, Clara invited me to join her for coffee at a quiet cafe near the office. The shop was cozy, filled with the rich scent of espresso and the low hum of conversation. We sat by the window, city lights flickering beyond the glass. "You've been incredible these past few days," she said, stirring her drink. "Not just with the campaign but with yourself. I can see the difference." I looked down at my cup, the warmth seeping into my palms. "It's scary," I admitted. "Every day feels like a test I'm not sure I'm ready for. But it also feels like I can finally breathe." Clara smiled softly. "That's because you're not fighting yourself anymore. And that's the hardest part, accepting that you deserve to exist exactly as you are." Her words sank deep, touching a place I hadn't dared to name. As the days passed, Clara continued to guide me, not with commands, but with quiet encouragement. She never pushed too hard, never demanded more than I could give. Instead, she created space, a safe, steady space where I could experiment, falter, and grow. One Friday morning, she surprised me with a small gift, a pale blue scarf, soft as a sigh. "For the presentation next week," she said with a playful wink. "A touch of elegance for my brilliant assistant." I wrapped the scarf gently around my neck, the fabric cool against my skin. "You don't have to keep giving me things," I said, though my heart warmed at the gesture. "I'm not giving you things," she replied. "I'm giving you reminders. Every piece is a little step toward the person you're becoming." Her words stayed with me long after I left her office. Each reminder, a bracelet, a scarf, a kind word, wasn't just an accessory. It was a marker on the map of my transformation, a quiet affirmation that the journey wasn't only real, but worth taking. But as the campaign deadline approached, a new challenge loomed on the horizon, one I couldn't avoid forever. The client wanted a live launch event, complete with a public presentation. Clara wanted me there, not behind the scenes, but at her side on stage. The thought of standing in front of an audience, fully visible, filled me with a fresh wave of panic. Could I really take that step? Could I stand in the light and let the world see me without the safety of secrecy? When Clara told me about the event, she watched my reaction carefully. "I know it's a big ask," she said gently. "And I'll never force you. But I also believe you're stronger than you think. You don't have to decide right now. Just consider it." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, Clara's words looping through my mind. I thought of the conference room, of the quiet courage it had taken to walk those first steps. I thought of the bracelet on my nightstand, the star charm gleaming softly in the moonlight. And I thought of the person in the mirror, the one who no longer felt like a secret. The fear was real, sharp as ever. But beneath it, something stronger stirred. A resolve I hadn't known I possessed. Maybe it was time to stop hiding completely. The week leading up to the launch passed in a blur of planning, rehearsals, and late-night creative sessions. The campaign had grown into something far bigger than I ever imagined. Billboards, digital ads, a full presentation showcasing transformation as more than just an idea, but a living, breathing story. And somehow, I was no longer just an assistant. I had become part of the heart of it, my own quiet journey woven into the fabric of every design, every slogan, every image. Yet each passing day brought me closer to the moment I both longed for and dreaded. The live launch. Clara wanted me to stand beside her on stage, fully visible to the clients, the press, and everyone who might happen to look a little too closely. The thought filled me with equal parts excitement and terror. I replayed every worst-case scenario in my mind. Whispers from the audience, mocking laughter, someone from my past recognizing me and tearing everything apart. The night before the event, I stayed late at the office to help Clara finalize the presentation slides. The building was quiet, the city lights spilling through the wide windows. Clara stood by the conference table, reviewing the final layout, her presence as steady and reassuring as always. "You're ready for this," she said without looking up, as though reading my thoughts. I tried to smile, but it faltered. "I'm not sure I am." She set down her tablet and turned to me, her eyes calm but unwavering. "Alex," she said softly, "you've been ready for this since the day you walked into my office with those photographs, whether you realized it or not. This isn't just a campaign. This is you. And it's beautiful." Her words settled over me like a blanket of quiet strength. Still, doubt lingered. What if people don't understand? What if they judge me? "They might," she admitted, her voice steady. "But you can't control that. All you can control is how you stand in your truth. And tonight you'll have me right beside you. No matter what." Her certainty steadied something deep inside me. I nodded, unable to speak. The next day arrived like a storm. I woke before dawn, my nerves a restless tide. The event was being held at a grand downtown venue, a sleek hall with mirrored walls and sweeping lights. Clara had arranged for a stylist to help us both prepare in a private suite backstage. When I entered the room, a rack of carefully selected outfits awaited me. Soft blouses, tailored skirts, elegant dresses in shades of midnight blue and silver. Clara greeted me with a warm smile. Her own outfit, a stunning black jumpsuit that shimmered subtly under the light. "Pick the one that feels most like you," she said gently. My eyes lingered on a soft silver dress, simple but graceful, with a fitted waist and flowing sleeves. I touched the fabric, my hands trembling slightly. Clara nodded as if she already knew my choice. "Perfect," she said. The stylist worked with quiet efficiency, helping me into the dress and applying makeup with a careful hand. I watched in the mirror as each brushstroke revealed not someone new, but someone real. The person staring back at me wasn't a character. It was me, refined, confident, luminous. When Clara joined me at the mirror, her eyes softened. "You look incredible," she said, her voice carrying a rare note of awe. I turned, nerves buzzing like electricity. "Do you think people will accept this?" Clara's smile was small but certain. "They don't get to decide if you're valid. They only get to witness your truth. And your truth is breathtaking." Her words lit something deep inside me, a quiet flame I hadn't realized was waiting to burn. As the event began, we waited behind the stage as the audience filled the hall. The low murmur of voices rose like a tide, punctuated by the soft hum of music. My heart raced with each passing second. Clara squeezed my hand, her touch grounding me. Then, the lights dimmed and the host's voice echoed through the hall. "Please welcome Clara Winters and her assistant, the creative force behind our transformation campaign." The applause was a low thunder as we stepped onto the stage. The bright lights blinded me at first, but Clara's presence beside me steadied my steps. I focused on the rhythm of my breathing, on the soft silver fabric against my skin, on the bracelet at my wrist catching the glow of the spotlights. Clara began the presentation with her usual poise, her voice carrying warmth and authority. She spoke about transformation, not as a trend but as a deeply human experience. About the courage it takes to embrace change, to step out of the shadows and into the light. At one point, she turned to me and gestured gracefully. "This campaign isn't just about images and words," she said to the audience. "It's about people, about authenticity. And I'm proud to say that my incredible assistant has been the very heart of this project." Their insight, their journey, their courage. It's what inspired everything you see tonight. The spotlight shifted to me. My breath caught as hundreds of eyes turned my way. The room fell silent, waiting for a heartbeat. Fear threatened to crush me. But then I remembered Clara's words. You just have to be. I stepped forward, my voice trembling at first but growing steadier with each word. This campaign isn't just a project for me, I said, my eyes scanning the audience. It's a reflection of something I've learned in my own life. That transformation isn't about becoming someone else. It's about allowing yourself to finally be who you've always been, even when it's scary, even when it feels impossible. Because authenticity is worth every step. The silence held for a breath, then another, and then applause. Warm, genuine applause that swelled through the hall like a wave. My chest tightened with a rush of emotion, relief, pride, and a freedom so sharp it was almost painful. As the event continued, I found myself smiling, speaking, even laughing with the audience. The fear that had once defined me felt distant, replaced by a sense of belonging I had never known before. Afterward, as the guests mingled and congratulated us, Clara stayed close, her presence a quiet anchor. You were brilliant, she whispered when we finally found a quiet corner. Do you realize what you just did? I shook my head, overwhelmed. I don't think it's sunk in yet. You showed the world your truth, she said, her eyes bright. And they applauded. That's not just bravery, that's transformation. Her words wrapped around me like a warm embrace. For so long I had believed that transformation meant hiding behind perfection, changing into something acceptable. But tonight I learned that transformation is the opposite. It's not about changing to fit the world. It's about showing the world the person you've always been. As we left the venue, the city stretched before us, glittering under the night sky. Clara walked beside me, her arm brushing mine in quiet solidarity. The fear hadn't vanished completely. It might never fully disappear, but it no longer ruled me. For the first time I wasn't thinking about hiding. I was thinking about living. And as we stepped into the cool night air, Clara's voice broke the silence, soft and certain. This is only the beginning. I looked at her, then at the endless lights of the city, and for the first time in my life I believed it. The morning after the launch felt different in a way I couldn't quite name. The city outside my window hummed with its usual rhythm. Honking cars, distant chatter, the soft glow of a rising sun, but inside everything felt lighter. For years I had carried a weight I couldn't explain. A quiet tension that pressed against my chest every time I looked in the mirror. Now that weight was gone. What remained was a quiet calm, like the air after a long storm. My phone buzzed with notifications. Messages from colleagues, emails from clients, even a few unexpected congratulations from people I hadn't spoken to in years. But instead of anxiety, I felt something close to pride. Not because of the campaign's success, though Clara said we'd exceeded every target, but because of what it represented. For once, the person people were praising was me. Not a mask. Not a carefully crafted persona. Just me. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, half expecting to feel the old nervousness, the familiar instinct to shrink back into invisibility. But when I stepped inside, something had shifted. Co-workers greeted me warmly, their smiles genuine. A few offered quiet compliments about the event, words like brave and inspiring whispered with a kind of respect I'd never known before. No one stared. No one sneered. They just saw me. Clara's office door was open, sunlight spilling across her desk. She looked up as I entered, her face lighting with that steady warmth that had carried me through this entire journey. "Good morning, star of the show," she said, her voice teasing but full of pride. I laughed, shaking my head. I still can't believe last night happened. Clara gestured for me to sit, her eyes sparkling. Believe it. The clients are thrilled. The press coverage is incredible. And you? She leaned forward slightly, her expression softening. You were extraordinary, Alex. I felt a flush creep across my cheeks. I was terrified. Of course you were, she said gently. But you didn't let fear win. That's what makes it extraordinary. For a moment, we sat in a quiet that felt almost sacred. The campaign had been about transformation, but what lingered now was something deeper than a marketing concept. It was the quiet understanding that transformation wasn't a single moment on a stage. It was a choice made every day, in every small act of honesty. After a pause, Clara smiled and reached for a folder on her desk. "I have something for you," she said, sliding it across to me. Inside was a new contract, my name printed neatly at the top. "Senior Creative Consultant," it read, with a salary that made my breath catch. I looked up stunned. "Clara, this is..." "You earned it," she said simply. "This isn't charity. This is recognition. You've been the heart of this project from the beginning, and I don't want that brilliance to go anywhere." Emotion swelled in my chest, too big to contain. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she said with a playful grin. I laughed, blinking back tears. "Yes. Absolutely yes." Clara's smile softened, her eyes lingering on mine a moment longer than necessary. There was something in her gaze, a quiet understanding, maybe even affection, that sent a warm ripple through me. As the day unfolded, the office buzzed with excitement. Reporters called for interviews, new clients requested meetings, and the campaign's images began to spread across social media. But even amid the chaos, I felt grounded in a way I'd never experienced before. That evening, Clara suggested we take a walk before heading home. The air was crisp, the city alive with glittering lights and the faint scent of rain. We strolled in easy silence until we reached a quiet park, the sound of the city fading behind us. "You know," Clara said softly, "when you first came to work for me, I saw someone with incredible talent. But I also saw someone hiding. Someone afraid to take up space." I glanced at her, heart beating a little faster. "You weren't wrong." She smiled faintly. "Maybe. But look at you now." We stopped by a small fountain, the water catching the glow of the streetlights. I looked down at my reflection, soft silver eyeshadow still faint on my lids from the night before, hair styled in loose waves, and for the first time I didn't see a stranger staring back. I saw myself. "Clara," I said quietly, "thank you. For everything. For seeing me before I could see myself." She turned toward me, her eyes luminous in the fading light. "Alex, you did this. I just reminded you that you were always enough." The warmth in her voice settled deep inside me, a quiet promise of acceptance that went beyond work, beyond friendship. Something unspoken hung between us, a possibility, tender and fragile but real. We walked back slowly, our shoulders brushing now and then. Neither of us spoke about what might come next, but in that silence, I felt the beginning of something I couldn't name yet. Something hopeful. Later that night, as I sat by my window watching the city lights, I thought about the word that had started it all. Transformation. I used to think it meant becoming someone else. Someone braver, someone more beautiful, someone acceptable. But now I understood. Transformation isn't about changing into someone new. It's about shedding the fear that keeps you from being who you've always been. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't pretending. I was living. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel.